You're welcome to my class today. In this class, we'll be looking at the last domain of the CISM, which is on incident management. I have a couple of things to cover in today's class. I'll be talking about incident management and incident response overview. I'll look at incident management and incident response plans. I'll talk about business impact analysis and why it's important. I'll talk about business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, incident classification and categorization. I'll talk about incident management training, testing and evaluation. I'll go on to talk about incident management tools and technologies, incident investigation and evaluation, incident containment methods, incident response communication, incident eradication and recovery, and post-incident review practices. In information security and, of course, cybersecurity, incident management and response is very, very important. And it is a good thing that this is also recognized in the Certified Information Security Manager exam, which is the CISM. And this is what I'll be looking at in today's class. When we talk about incidents, I'll first take it from what are the kinds of incidents that an organization can face. There are different types of incidents. It could be small incidents, it could be major incidents, it could be something that can lead to a disaster within the organization. And it is important for organizations to prepare for any kind of incident because, again, in cybersecurity, the attack can happen at any time. So we need to be ready and prepare for it. What is the goal? Okay, let me start by talking about the relationship between incident management and incident response. With incident management, what you should think about is you are managing incident through the entire life cycle of an incident. So you see an incident and you begin to think about managing the incident all through its entire life cycle. It involves all the actions taken before an incident, during an incident, and of course, after an incident. That is the incident management process, and that is what it entails. And what that means is that the organization needs to have things in place. They have to design processes to see how they can mitigate the impact of an incident. They have to think about what are the things that we need to have in place to ensure that at every point in time, we understand that incidents can happen and we can manage these incidents effectively. And with incident management, it includes coordination of both the business and technical resource. So one thing to note with incident management is it's not an IT thing. I've seen organizations where when it comes to incidents, they just want to pin it to IT. You also have to understand that cybersecurity in itself is an enabler of the business. So it means that with incident management, business also needs to be involved. There has to be representatives from the business that would understand what incidents are about and what kind of incidents can occur within the organization. What is the goal? Why are we particular about managing incidents? This would help us to identify and detect incidents quickly. So when we have a process in place for managing incidents, it's easier because we're able to identify these incidents as they happen. We're able to understand what kind of incidents these incidents are. We're able to diagnose them. The other one is we're able to contain. We're able to manage the incident by containing the incident and, of course, going through restoration processes and so on and so forth. Now, one thing to understand is that with incident response, you're only looking at after. Remember, I said incident management covers the entire life cycle of an incident. But with incident response, you're only looking at how do we respond when an incident has occurred? What are the steps that we need to take to ensure that we're able to respond to incidents appropriately when these incidents happen? And by doing that, we're able to take different kinds of steps. What is the goal of managing incidents? Why are we doing this? Again, we are doing this because we need to ensure that incidents are managed properly, ensuring that we follow the process. And when these incidents happen, we're able to restore and, of course, recover from these incidents without with just minimal disruptions within the organization. And of course, with incident handling, we should be sure that all the processes or all the tasks that we need to be able to handle incidents, we are able to document these steps. It's very, very important. And of course, documenting the entire life cycle of incidents is also critical. So I'll be touching on some of these things as we go along in today's class. So let's talk about incident management and incident response plans. I'll start by talking about the importance of incident management. Why is it important for us to manage incidents? What is the reason why we need to manage incidents within the organization? Of course, we now know that it's no longer a case of if with cyber attacks, it's a case of when. Organizations are now going above and beyond. Attacks are now becoming sophisticated. A lot of things are now going on within organizations. And if we don't put controls in place, if we don't put steps in place, if we don't put processes in place, the organization will definitely be impacted. So as a result of that, it is important to manage incidents. It is very, very important. If the organization has poor processes, poor IT processes, this could impact because, again, a lot of attacks are out there. A lot of incidents are happening within organizations. So it's very important that every organization understands what they need to do to manage their incidents effectively, as this is now becoming very important. What are the outcomes of incident management? With managing incidents, the organization can, of course, deal with unanticipated events, because another thing to note is that with incidents, a lot of events happen that may threaten to disrupt the business. But once the organization has put things in place, they will be able to deal with this as they happen. The organization will have sufficient detection and monitoring capabilities to ensure that incidents are detected in a timely manner. There are lots of tools and technologies out there now that are being used to be able to monitor. Monitoring before it happens. Remember, three cybersecurity controls, three controls that we always talk about. We talk about preventive controls. There's a place for preventive, there's a place for detective, and there's a place for corrective. So before we get to that point that we are responding, which is corrective, we need to ensure that we have things in place to monitor, to detect. That's why I said there's a place for detective and there's a place for corrective. So having these things in place would help the organization properly detect controls. Of course, having people who are trained, who understand how to recognize incidents, understand how to put the severity criteria, and having proper reporting procedures in place is also very important when we are talking about outcomes of incident management. It is very important to have people who are skilled, people who understand what to do when it comes to managing incidents effectively, as this is key. Now, I'm going to go quickly to talk about incident management resources. What are the kind of resources that is important in managing incidents? One thing I'll first talk about is that in terms of resources, you look at resources in terms of human resource, look at technical resource, look at financial resource, and so on. With human resource, it is very important that, just like I've mentioned, incident management should not be left to IT to deal with. It is the responsibility of business plus IT. It is important to have people within business who understands the process of managing incidents. So every organization must ensure that they have people from different parts of the business that understands how to manage incidents. This is very important. Of course, moving away from human resource, also understanding the type of technical resources that are needed to ensure that incidents are managed effectively. And of course, as the case may be, there are cases where financial resources are needed in the incident management process and life cycle. So ensuring that these resources are clear and are used to manage incidents effectively. So I'll go quickly to policies and standards. One key document that is important when it comes to managing incidents is what we call an incident response plan. I always like to say that every organization must, the keyword here is must have an incident response plan. Incident response plan helps organizations to stay ahead. Testing the plan helps an organization to understand that, okay, we may be brief, we may have incidents, but what do we do when these incidents occur? We're able to move on from it. We're able to minimize disruption because we have a plan, and not just a plan for fancy sake, but a plan that we have tested over time, which is very important. So ensuring that these documents exist is very important. Also having an incident management policy or the plan supporting other policies within the organization is very, very important. Ensuring that the incident management activities are aligned with the mission of the incident management team is also very critical when documenting your plan. So don't document the plan for the sake of having a document, but ensuring that there's an alignment with the plan, ensuring that expectations are set correctly. Who is doing what? What are we supposed to do? How do we want to ensure that we can test this plan? Is it realistic? Or is it just a document that we have? Or is it plan real? Is it realistic? Very important. And also documenting clear roles and responsibilities in your incident response plan. Who is doing what? When do we activate this plan? And at what point? Who activates it? What's the role of the information security manager? What's the role of the security engineer? What's the role of the communications person? What's the role of HR? And so on and so forth. So ensuring that everybody understands their role and responsibilities. And this is also clear is very important. So I'll go quickly to talk about incident management objectives. Ensuring that you understand why. What are the objectives? Why do we want to manage incidents within our organization? The objectives, key objectives, because we want to ensure that we're able to restore our system and business processes to normal operation. Because when an incident happens, that means there's a disruption. It's just like in your day-to-day life, in your normal life, everything is going smoothly. And then one day an incident happens. It means that the incident has disrupted what should be normal for you in your day-to-day life. And that's the exact same thing with security. So when that happens, what next? What's the goal? The goal is that we want to be able to restore our system. We want to be able to restore our business processes back to normal operation so that we can continue. Another goal could be that we want to be able to prevent incidents from reoccurring. Why? By documenting and learning from past incidents. It's just like when you've made a mistake in the past, in reality. What do? You take notes, you pay attention. Okay, I've made this mistake. I don't want to make this mistake again. And because I don't want to make it again, I will document it. I will learn from it. I will pay attention to the things that I have done. Exactly the same thing. Objective. Why are we interested in managing our incidents? What is the goal? What is the objective? Also ensuring that we deploy safeguards to protect and reduce impact to assets in the event of an incident. Having things in place to protect our information assets, to reduce the impacts on our assets. And that is why it is very important to document our incidents. An organization must have a log for incidents. You must log it because you can only learn from what you have logged. Next one I'll talk about is strategic alignment. Ensuring that you align your incident management with the organization's strategic plan. It is very important. So you work in an organization as an InfoSec person, you must understand that cybersecurity is an enabler of the business. Every function you are carving out of cybersecurity must support the business strategic plan. And incident management is also one of it. What is the company's mission? How does that mission, when you come look at incident management, what do you want to achieve? What is the mission? What are the services that the incident management team will be providing? And like I said, involvement of business, ensuring that business also understands this. What is the structure of the organization? And ensuring that the incident management team, their structure also aligns in terms of how the organization is structured. So ensuring a strategic alignment between the business and what you are doing when it comes to incident management is very, very important. Right? The next one I'll talk about is response and recovery plan. Of course, I've said something like this. Having an incident response plan is very, very important. The incident response plan must be clear. What is the step-by-step process of responding to an incident? Who at the senior management level is going to be involved in this process? Maybe from an approval standpoint, for example. What are the metrics that I'll be using to measure what we have, the effectiveness? Do we have a roadmap in place to know what we are doing in terms of our incident response plan? How does this plan fit into the enterprise? Remember, I said strategic alignment. We have to be sure. Does this plan fit into the enterprise? Very, very important. So it is very important to document the response and recovery plan and align. Remember strategic alignment and align again to the business. So the next one I'll talk about is what is the role of the information security manager in incident management? It is very important for the information security manager to know their role. Information security manager must support the entire process and see how this also aligns with the business continuity and the disaster recovery plan. Because these are also separate documents which I will be talking about as part of this class today. Ensuring that alignment is very important. And also ensuring that this plan is tested from time to time. the information security manager has a role to play in terms of ensuring the testing of the incident response plan, which is very key. The next one I'll talk about, of course, one of my favorite topics is risk management. Incident management and risk management, they go hand in hand because, again, remember, what are we trying to do? At the end of the day, we are doing cybersecurity because we are trying to reduce risk to acceptable levels. So incidents can also make risks to happen within the organization. So ensuring that we have risks within our radar. And when some of these incidents are occurring over and over again, we'll highlight them as risks and manage them effectively. And then the last one, of course, that I'll talk about is assurance process integration. With this, it means that the type and nature of incidents the information security manager may deal with may require the involvement of other functions within the organization. So it depends on the type of incident. Who are we bringing in? How are we ensuring that we integrate this within our processes within the organization? What functions are required or should be involved? Again, remember, with incidents, it's not just a technical thing. It's not just an IT thing. It's not just an InfoSec thing, but it is an organizational thing. And it has to be in the forefront. There are some people that just by standard, they have to be involved in the incident management process and in the incident management plan, which is very important. So moving on from that quickly, value delivery. To deliver value, incident management should do what? Should be able to integrate with business processes and structures. I've talked about this. This is very, very key. Let's even forget that this is for preparation of an exam. In the information security context, one of the key things you must remember is integration with the business. Do not forget every information security process that you're working with or dealing with, think about how you can integrate with the business. I'll give an example. Cybersecurity awareness and training. If you train only your IT staff, it's just a matter of time. The organization would be affected greatly. Integrating cybersecurity awareness in such a way that every member of the organization is trained is important to deliver value. Incident management, and this is just incident management because this is the context of this class, but don't forget, integrating information security or cyber security with the business is the number one goal, and that is what every InfoSec staff must always attempt to achieve. All right? Improve the capability of businesses. We're still talking about value delivery now. You must be able to improve the capability of businesses to manage the risk and provide assurance to stakeholders. Let the stakeholders know that when it comes to incident management, we are doing things properly. We are able to integrate this thing with the business. We're integrating our incident management plan or incident response plan with our business continuity plan. And of course, our disaster recovery plan. We are looking at the business strategy and we are seeing how we can align our incident management with what the business is saying. For example, one of the business goals says that we want to ensure that our customers are satisfied. Customer satisfaction, that's a business goal. This is just an example. This is not a real business goal for any organization, except they have it in place. Customer satisfaction, that's the business goal. Now, from an incident management perspective, how do you want to support the business to achieve this goal, which is customer satisfaction? From an incident perspective, you can say that to ensure that incidents are minimized as much as possible. And to be able to do that, you must have ensured that you have your incident management policy in place, you have your incident response plan, incidents are tested from time to time, you are looking at risk from recurring incidents, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, you are able to ensure that customers are satisfied because incidents are reduced to a bare minimum. Alignment, don't forget. All right. Another one I'll quickly talk about is resource management. Managing resources. I've talked about this a little bit before. Different resources, cost, budget, people, time, and every other factors. Look at the resource you have within your organization. Do we have enough resources or do we have limited resources? If we have limited resources, what do we need to do to ensure we are still staying updated or we are still okay with the way we are managing our incidents? If we don't have enough budget to play around with, for example, what are the things we can still do with the limited budget? If we don't have enough people, what are the things we can still achieve with the people that we have in place? Or what do we need to do to ensure that we managed our resource effectively This is very important. And next one I'll quickly talk about is defining incident management procedures. There's no one size fits all procedures for every organization. Remember, with organizations, one of the things I say in security is that the first thing you need to learn when you're learning security is context. Why? Every organization is different. Type of the organization, the nature of the business, the size, the amount of money they can spend, large enterprise, small enterprise, and so on. So when you have an incident management procedure, it's not cast in stone. It's not one incident management procedure that every company will use. All right, very important. Next one I'll quickly talk about is having a detailed plan of action for incident management. Ensure within the organization there are different approaches in place to developing the incident management plan and the response plan. Have a plan of action. Don't just say it as maybe you've done a gap assessment and you realize that the company does not have an incident response plan and it ends there. No. What is the next step? What is the plan? How do we want to ensure that we establish this incident management plan or the incident response plan, which is very important? Have that detailed plan of action. The next one I'll quickly talk about is the current state of incident response capability. What is the current state? What is the history of incidents? What are the threats? What are the vulnerabilities that exist? Very, very important. Remember, I've talked about this in one of my classes. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses, and threats try to exploit these weaknesses to cause a risk within the organization. History of incidents. Past incidents. Remember, I also said something here in this class today. I said that you use the history of incidents to also build your risk. Past incidents, and that is why you must have an incident log document, and that way you're able to understand, okay, this incident has been occurring over time, these are the potential risks, and you match it to the threats and vulnerabilities, and you're able to build your risk in your risk register effectively. All right, next one I'll talk about now, which I've mentioned in passing, is developing an incident response plan. Every organization, I've said this and I'm emphasizing it again, every organization must have an incident response plan. How do you respond? Remember, incident response plan comes as a corrective measure. Testing the plan before an incident occurs, but the incident response plan itself is activated after an incident has occurred. Comes in as a corrective measure. So ensuring that a plan is in place, stating the different steps. Preparation is an example of a step that should be in the incident response plan. Identification of incident, containment, those are examples. Detection, recovery, post-incident review, and so on. Communication. Ensuring that an incident response plan exists is very important. Next one I'll talk about is having a team. Very important. Compulsory, mandatory, any other word that you can use. Very important to have an incident management and response team. Please, your incident response must not be on vibes. No, it must not be on vibes. You must have a team, and the team must have clear roles and responsibilities. So it's not just a team on paper. Oh, you are a member of the team and that's it, final. No, the team must have clear roles and responsibilities. It is very, very important. And when you have the team, next thing is having training, equipping the staff. Please ensure that we equip your staff. They must know what to do, when to do what they need to do. Train them. Cybersecurity is evolving. What they know last year, update what they know from what they knew last year, because cybersecurity is evolving. Let them understand what they need to do when an incident occurs within the organization. And of course, the next one I'll talk about is incident notification process. How do we ensure that people get notified when an incident occurs? Also ensuring that we obtain timely and relevant information that can help the organization respond quickly when there's an incident. Because what is the goal? Why are we interested in managing incidents? Because we want to limit the potential loss and damage. We want to minimize disruption. We want to be able to continue our business as quick as possible without losing a lot. We want to be able to keep our reputation as an organization and a lot of other things like that. So it is very important. And of course, also very important to look at the challenges in developing an incident management plan. Everything we do in security has its own challenges. There are lots of challenges, but one of the ones I would just quickly mention is non-alignment with the business. Everything you are doing in security, do not forget. If you forget everything else, please do not forget. You must align with the business. Security must align with the business. There's no other way. Security must align with the business. So if the business goes, is going in one direction, your incident management plan is going in another direction, there are going to be issues that will be faced, and it's going to lead to different challenges. So I'm just going to move on quickly because of time, and then I'll be talking about the business impact analysis. Why is it important? What is the element of a BIA? So when you hear business impact analysis, what comes to your mind? And what is the element? What should you do when you look at business impact analysis? First thing I'll talk about is a business impact analysis helps to determine the loss to an organization resulting from a function being unavailable. I will explain. This is just English, but I will go deep now to explain. So, for example, an organization has, say, 10 departments that carries out different function. Simple terms that will make you understand business impact analysis. Maybe some people have heard about it, but they never understood what it meant. This is it, simple. Example, an organization has about 10 departments within their organization, 10 departments. Now, these 10 departments have different functions that they do. So let's say, for example, they have a department called operations. Operations has different functions, processing transactions, different things like that. Now, if one of those functions, processing transaction, is not available within a period of time based on different factors, will the organization still be intact, or will they face reputational damage, regulatory impacts, will they lose money, and so on and so forth? That is what basic summary of business impact analysis. We want to understand the loss, what we are going to lose over time because of the unavailability of a function or of a process. Business impact analysis. We want to also be able to identify the minimum resources that we need for recovery. If we need to recover a function or a process, what are the minimum resources that we need? I want to be able to prioritize this recovery of our processes. So if this function or this process is unavailable, how soon? Is it critical? So the essence of business impact analysis is that we are identifying our critical processes, or some companies can call it functions. So if it is critical, it means that we need to prioritize the recovery of that process. All right? Elements of a BIA. Describe the business mission. Very important. Identify your critical process using time intervals. If this process is not available within 2 hours, can we survive? Okay, we can survive. If it is not available within 4 hours, can we still survive? Okay, we can't really survive. It means that we must ensure that we have things in place for this process to be available. In what instance? It could be because of people. Maybe the process will not be available in 4 hours because we only have one person. And if that person is sick or not available, the process will be affected. Or it could be because of technology, downtime in technology. Or it could be because it's dependent on a supplier, and so on and so forth. That is what the business impact analysis is about. And what are the benefits? Why is it important for us, for our organization, to conduct a BIA, which is business impact analysis? Because it will help us to understand the amount of potential loss due to the unavailability of a process or function. Could it be financial? Could it be operational loss? Could it be our reputation? Could it be regulatory fines that we would pay? And so on and so forth. And that is why a business impact analysis is important. It will also help us to prioritize restoration activities. How do we restore if this process or function is not available? Another benefit is that we'll be able to understand the dependencies of our various functions. What are these functions dependent on, which is very critical? Is it dependent on a supplier, for example? How do we ensure that we understand the dependency of this function and we're able to recover when is needed? And of course, another benefit is to raise the level of awareness for responding to response management within our organization. What that means is that people within the business now understand that this process is critical. So at every point in time, we need to ensure that we are on top of things when it comes to this process. So people now become aware of the criticality of the process. Just before moving quickly to business continuity, some people have this mindset about business impact analysis that when you do a BIA and their department does not come off as critical, it means that those people are not critical within the organization. I just want to erase that mindset that don't see yourself as not critical because your department or your function has not been listed as critical due to a business impact analysis. Okay. So moving quickly to business continuity plan. Business continuity plan should be an outcome from a business impact analysis. If you work in an organization and they have a business continuity plan, they never conducted a business impact analysis, please raise a flag. They must conduct a business impact analysis before documenting their business continuity plan. It should be an outcome of the business impact analysis. Ensuring that incident response is integrated with business continuity. I think I've talked about that, so I'm not going to overflog it. Understanding what is our recovery time objective, what is our recovery point objective, integrating this, ensuring that we understand the role of incident response, of course, with business continuity is very critical when it comes to business continuity plans. Ensuring that we have methods in place for providing continuity of network services. What are the redundancy that we have in place? Ensuring that when there's a downtime, we understand what to do. What are the routing methods that are available? Do we have high availability considerations? Business continuity. Again, remember, the business must continue. That's business continuity. If you don't remember how to define or how to talk about business continuity, always remember that the business must continue. So it means that when there's a disruption because of something, is there an high availability consideration that would make us continue our business? And the disruption would not affect our business. And then, of course, the last one I'll talk about is insurance. What are the things we have in place in terms of insurance? Do we have different types of insurance? And do we have cyber insurance, for example, in place within the organization? Is it well defined? Is it structured? Do we know at what point we can kick in our insurance policy or our insurance coverage? What are the types of coverage? What does it cover? What does our insurance cover? So these things are important when you are looking at your incident response in line with business continuity. Remember what I said, the business must continue. That's the thing about business continuity. So moving on quickly, disaster recovery, very important, having a disaster recovery plan in place. How do we ensure that we are able to recover from a disaster? Remember, business continuity. So if you want to think about it, business continuity and disaster recovery. Business continuity looks at the entire business. Disaster recovery focuses on the recovery of IT systems after disruptive events. That is why when you are working on a business impact analysis, right, you must look at technology considerations. What technology requirement is tied to the process in question that is critical? And how long would it take to recover? What is the recovery time objective of this technology that you're talking about? So you define for the technology that is tied to the process. You also define the recovery time objective for the process itself. So do you see that business continuity and disaster recovery, they go hand in hand? So that is why I said that your first step is your business impact analysis, and it is very, very important. For your disaster recovery, again, like I said, start from your BIA, business impact analysis. And when you conduct a business impact analysis, you must also conduct a risk assessment. From a people standpoint, technology standpoint, a supplier standpoint, and of course, a process standpoint, conduct a risk assessment. All right? Define your response and recovery strategy. Document those plans. A business impact analysis is the first step before you can have your business continuity plan in place. And of course, your business impact analysis also fits into your disaster recovery plan because, again, like I said, IT systems, that's the focus of disaster recovery. All right? So having specific procedures for business continuity and disaster recovery is important. Also, understanding your recovery operations. How do we recover? Do you have a physical disaster recovery site, for example? And where is the facility located? hope the facility is not located in the same location as your primary facility. This is for organizations that still have their resources on-prem. So we say resources on-prem or in the cloud. So if you are still operating on-prem, then your primary facility and your disaster recovery facility must not be in the same location. All right. So recovery operations is very important. Evaluating the different recovery strategies. What is the total cost of your recovery? Is it documented? And this cost should also include the cost of preparing for possible disruptions. Now, I'm talking about IT now. And in this instance, it can also include people, training and personnel costs, and the cost of putting these things into effect in the event of an incident. So evaluating the different recovery strategies. Addressing threats. I've talked about recovery sites, and of course, feeds into basis for recovery site selection. Primary site and secondary site must not be in the same vicinity because of possible risk. And of course, having response and recovery strategy implementation. How do we ensure that we recover? What is our strategy for ensuring that we recover? All right. For example, do we have evacuation procedures? At what point do we declare a disaster? What are the things we need to do? Pre-incident readiness. How do we ensure that we are ready? Part of pre-incident readiness involves having an incident response plan in place, of course. So moving on quickly, incident classification and categorization. That's what I'll talk about. In every organization, there should be an escalation process for effective incident management. Have steps. Have a process in place. Who are the people? Are there designated roles? In some companies, they will say we have help desk or service desk. What is the role? What is it called in your organization? Because there must be a process to be able to classify incidents and categorize incidents. So when people report an incident, for example, what is the next step? How do we classify? How do we ensure that the incident is categorized accordingly? All right. And then who feeds it back? Or if they need to escalate to the next step, if it's an incident that the help desk or the service desk cannot solve, if they need to escalate to the next step. So has that been defined? And who takes up those functions, which is also very important. So I'm very mindful of time, so I'm going to go quickly. This is meant to be a 1 hour session. I think I've spent a couple of time already. So moving on quickly, I'll talk about incident management, training, testing, and evaluation. Very important. First thing I'll talk about is incident management roles and responsibilities. I've said this, I will not overflog. Please define roles and responsibilities. Top management commitment. One of my classes in this CISM domain, I think I've talked about it. Top management commitments. There must be a tone at the top. If not, the organization is wasting their time. I'm sorry to be blunt about this, but senior management commitment is number one in security. Otherwise, the organization is wasting their time. What are their responsibilities? They should also have responsibilities. And of course, the information security manager, the responsibility of the information security manager should be clear. The information security manager must ensure that there's an incident response plan in place. Don't run on vibes. I've said this already. The information security manager should coordinate response activities. You're not necessarily the person as an information security manager that will contain the incident, but you should coordinate those activities and plan accordingly. Ensure that for the entire period that the organization is responding to the incident, there are proper plans in place, which is very important. All right. Next one I'll talk about is having set of metrics and indicators for managing incidents. Please, this is very important. Don't run your incident management on vibes. Please have set of metrics. I've talked about this, so I'll not overflow, but I'll just mention some key metrics. Total number of reported incidents can be a metric. How many incidents are we reporting in a quarter? Total number of detected incidents. Number of days without incident can be a metric. For example, you can say that if we go 90 days without an incident within the organization, we can score ourselves green. For example, that can be a metric that you can report to senior management. Average time to resolve an incident. How long does it take us to resolve an incident? Does it take us 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 10 days, 2 days, and so on? That can be a metric. Total number of incidents successfully resolved. 19 incidents reported, only 2 were resolved. And then you plot your chart and report it. Incidents not resolved successfully. So these are examples of metrics, but it is very, very important to have metrics in place, all right, for incident management. Next one I'll talk about quickly is performance measurements. Measure the performance of incident management and response. This would help to know, are we, the objectives that we've set for incident management, remember I talked about this, are we achieving this objective or not? And the information from the metrics can feed into this performance measurement. So going quickly, ensure that you update your recovery plans. Please don't have a plan, and that plan will be there for 5 years without any updates. Changes will occur within organizations. It is the only constant thing is change. Change will occur. So when those change occur, ensure that you are updating your plans. This is very important. All right. Let's talk quickly. Testing your plans. I've talked about this, so I will not overflog. Ensure you test. And this test should focus on what? If there are gaps, please use the test to identify these gaps so that you can always update the plan. Test your timelines. Are these timelines effective? Is it realistic? Determine the effectiveness of the strategies that you've documented in the plan. Again, sometimes we put lots of things on paper that looks good and nice, but in reality, they are not effective. So determine the effectiveness of your strategy. Evaluate the performance of your people when you're testing this plan. Very important. All right. So I'll go quickly and talk about the next one. Periodic testing, of course, I've said this. So testing should be periodic. Very important for testing. Very important for testing to be periodic. Don't do testing as one-off. Test from time to time. It is very important. Develop test objectives when you are testing. Please ensure that you develop test objectives when you are testing. So at the end of the test, the objective, did we achieve the objective of the test or not? Develop the objective and eventually state it there. We achieved, no, we did not achieve. Evaluate that test. And if we find out that we did not achieve, develop recommendations so that the next time we can look at this recommendation and use it to improve our incident response or our business continuity plan. Very important. All right. So I'll go quickly. Testing for infrastructure and critical business applications. Based on the risk assessment that you've done or the business impacts, the organization will be able to identify critical applications and, of course, the infrastructure needed to support these applications. And this must be tested also. Types of tests. What are the types of tests that you want to carry out? Is it going to be a checklist kind of test? Do we have this? Yes, tick. Do we have that? No, don't tick. Or is it going to be a structured walkthrough test or a simulation test? Or a full interruption test? You shut down operations at the primary site and see if you can shift to the recovery site. Some organizations do this. Understanding the type of test is also very important. All right. And then ensuring that you document your test. Have a test results. Document your test. Present the reports of your test. It is very important. And then lastly, recovery test metrics. Talking about metrics is all about measuring success. Also using this, measure the success, use percentages. What are the accuracies and all of that? Measure the effectiveness of your test. All right. So going quickly from that, I'll quickly talk about incident management operations. With incident management operations, the information security manager needs to be fully aware of and understand the environment the organization operates. Again, remember, context. Every time I teach, context of the organization keeps coming back. The information security manager must understand this. Even before establishing a plan, it is very important to understand the organization. The operations of the organization must be clear because that would help to establish a proper plan for the organization. A plan is not one size fits all. You can't download a plan from ChatGPT just like that and dump it in your organization. No, it doesn't work that way. Your plan must align to your organization's context. So you can't just take a plan off the internet and say, it looks good, it looks nice, we'll use it in our company. It doesn't work that way. It must align to your business. Otherwise, it's just a fancy document. Yes, Ireti said so. It's just a fancy document. All right. So moving on quickly, incident management tools and technologies. I've talked about some of these things. So again, I will not be overflogging a lot. Having your people in place, I've talked about it. Roles and responsibilities. Having your incident management team organization, very important. All right. So very important. Ensuring that we have the right people is critical when you're looking at incident management. Also, having incident management systems in place. Remember, I said preventive, detective, corrective. The systems help with one critical aspect of cybersecurity, detective. You have to detect. You have to detect. You can't continue to just prevent, and wait to correct. You must detect. So use these systems. Thank God for technology now. These systems are really good. So we have endpoint detection solutions in place. We have different kind of solutions that can be used for managing incidents within the organization by way of detection. All right. Incident management technology foundations. So the team must be familiar with incident response. Incident management team does not know principles around access control. They have to. They must understand basic security concept. Why? Because when there are problems that arise from this concept, they are able to determine because they understand the concepts. Concepts around authentication, availability, compliance, integrity, privacy, and things like that. So the next one I'll quickly talk about, again, I'm really mindful of time, so I'm just jumping around things, is skills. Please, it is important to have the right skills in place to manage incidents. Again, you don't run incidents on vibes. You must have the right skills, and some of these skills can be built. Incident response team, there must be communication. In fact, the incident response team must have a way to collaborate. This team must have leadership skills, presentation skills, ability to follow policies and procedures. Your policy cannot be saying A and the team is doing B. People skills, ability to cope. Some people will put in their CV, I can work under pressure. When they are faced with pressure, an incident has happened, they just ghost. They don't know how to deal with it. Some of these skills can be built over time. Nobody is perfect. You can build some of these skills over time. Ability to solve problems, time management, and so on and so forth. So very important. And of course, building awareness. Continue to build awareness. Again, I always like to say that incident management team, you must subscribe to different platforms as an incident response team member. It is very important. You must be open-minded, willing to learn. You see an incident, an attack has been posted, go and read about it. What's the root cause? How did it happen? What did you learn from this? How can you bring something like this to your organization so it doesn't happen? Continuous awareness and education. And of course, audits. Audits are very important when it comes to incident management. Internal audit, external audit. And that is why I like standards and frameworks, because these standards and frameworks, a lot of times, they cover things around incident management and response. And of course, the last thing I'll talk about here is outsourced security providers. In some cases, some organizations outsource their incident management capability because it's more of a cost-effective option for them. They have to ensure that they do the right things, have proper agreements in place. The information security manager must be on top of it, ensuring that they follow the third-party management process and so on and so forth for that. So moving on quickly, incident investigation and evaluation. What does this mean? When an incident happens, it has to be investigated and of course evaluated. What do we need to do? Executing response and recovery plans. Again, the response and recovery plan is a fancy document until you need to execute the plan. So when an incident happens, ensure that before an incident happens, this plan has been tested. That's the first step of execution. Tested under realistic conditions. Some people, they would say, I always see this for people who are active on social media, they will say, it can never be me. In cybersecurity, it can be you. It can be your organization. So you wake up with the mindset that it can never be us. It's just a matter of time. It can be you. All right. So test. That is why you have to test. Very important. And then, of course, ensuring execution as required. You have to ensure that there is someone directing the task within the plan. There's a facilitator. So when you put the plan and everybody is there, you want to do a simulation test, somebody must direct it, somebody must facilitate it. Please ensure that your plans are tested. If you are working in a security role currently and you are watching this video and your organization has never ever tested an incident response plan, I want to make a soft appeal that you should please ensure that they test their incident response plan. Don't say it can never be us. It can't be us. No, security is very good. You never say never. Again, there is no 100% security. I can beat my chest anywhere and say that there is no 100% security. People possess technology. You can't have 100%. All right? So very important to ensure that your plans are tested properly. All right? Incident containment methods. What are the things we need to do to contain incidents? Again, what is containment? You are looking at all the activities, tasks and steps that you are taking to be able to limit or reduce the impact of an incident. You are containing it so that it doesn't spread. Remember, sometimes they'll say, I need to contain this thing so that it doesn't spread too much. It's the same thing with containment and incident management. We are limiting the impact. Very important. Different things from technical standpoint, there are a lot of things to do to ensure that you contain an incident. An example, a very common one that most people are familiar with is isolation. They will say isolate from the network so that it doesn't spread. That's an example of how to contain. But of course, there are different ways by which you can contain an incident. But you are doing that to limit the impact. Because if you don't contain, that system is affected and that system is on the network. It's just a matter of time. Every system within the network will definitely be affected. So very important to contain incidents. So again, because of pressed for time, I'll go quickly to incident response communication. Very important. Notification requirements. Who are we notifying? In your incident response plan, please document your notification requirements. Include a directory of key decision-making personnel, end users, members, and so on. Who do you need to notify when an incident happens? Law enforcement, human resource, for example, regulatory bodies, and so on. Who is making the notification? Who is communicating? Very important. What are the communication networks that we need to restore business operations? Again, also remember that these communication networks are susceptible to the same natural disasters as, of course, the main data centers or whatever it is that you are using. So ensuring that when some of these incidents happen, you have some backups in place. What options can you rely on for communication? And on a softer side of communication, who is responsible for making communication on behalf of the organization? It's very, very important. So when you're looking at communicating when it comes to incidents, think about that on the softer side of things. All right. So moving on quickly, incident eradication and recovery. Eradication activities. What are the things that you need to do when it comes to eradicating incidents? Root cause analysis. I always tell people you have to conduct a root cause analysis. If you want to prevent reoccurrence, you must conduct a root cause analysis. Very, very important. And of course, different other ways of eradicating. Some can be very technical. Again, as an InfoSec analyst, manager, or officer, you may not be the person doing some of these eradication activities, but that is why you must identify clear roles and responsibilities. It could be a technical security engineer that will carry out this action. But if you have not defined this in your incident response, how would this work out for you? And then, of course, recovery. Recovery is very, very important in an incident response plan and incident management. You must recover. But don't forget that recovery can only happen after the successful containment and eradication. So you can't jump the gun and start by recovering. No, it doesn't work that way. You must have fully addressed the root cause that you identified. This is very important. All right. There are different ways to recover, but the most important thing is that the organization must commence recovery efforts and ensure that they are able to return back to business as usual operations. An incident is not the end of the world. A lot of organizations have faced incidents and they have recovered from it. So you can't say, we have faced incident, we can't move on from this. No, we can't recover. Who said so? Who made the law? That is why I'm going back again to one of my slides. Skills. The right skill set in incident management and response is important. Very, very important as an organization. And of course, one of the topics I like in incident management, post-incident review. Very important. Follow-up. There must be a follow-up process. This is one of the most critical parts. What are the lessons that were learned? In fact, post-incident review must be done with the incident management team or incident response team. All of you must gather together again and discuss what are the lessons, what are the things that we've picked from this. Did you document the incidents? Everybody give your feedback. Give feedback on how we handled it. What are the things we could have done better? Give senior management a report. What are the issues that you identified in the process? Maybe in the step-by-step process of responding to the incident. And as part of the post-incident review, if you need to update your plan, your procedure, your policy, any document, please, you need to ensure that you do that. Post-incident review is a critical part of the incident response process. Another thing I would like to say is that post-incident review can also be used for awareness. The lessons that you learned, can share with the wider team. This incident occurred on so dates. These are some of the key lessons that we learned from the incident. Use it to create awareness. It is very, very important. Do not go through the incident response process without thinking about post-incident review. Identify the causes, what are the corrective actions, and sometimes from post-incident review, you can also have set of recommendations. That you can use to improve your process. And from the causes, when you're identifying the causes, answer some questions, like going back to some of the things that happened. You already have it, so you're just going back to it to refresh your memory. What happened? Where did this come from? Why did this happen? And you are building your awareness from those things. So when you're building your awareness, it's not magic to you. You have something that you're already leveraging on and you're just building on it. Every step of the incident process, please ensure that you document things. You also need it when you're doing your post-incident review. This is very critical. Okay, this brings me to the end of my class today. So I've gone way ahead of time. I have some set of questions like I normally do in my classes, but I'm just going to be very fast with it because of time. First one, what's the primary goal of a post-incident review? This is just what we finished talking about now. The answer to this is to derive ways to improve the response process. That's the key goal. You want to improve. Remember, I said that some of the things you get from this, you use it to update your policy, your plans, your procedure, and so on. It's because you want to improve the process. And that is why this is critical. All right. Second one says, what is the primary reason for conducting triage? This is because you want to prioritize limited resources when handling incidents. Very important. Sometimes resources are limited, but if you don't do the triage, what do you find? Everything just becomes chaotic. So you're able to categorize, prioritize, and assign based on criticality of the incident. And that way you're able to allocate resources more efficiently, which is very important. All right. Next one says, which of the following is the most important when deciding whether to build an alternate facility or subscribe to a hot site operated by a third party? The answer is location and cost of commercial recovery facilities. Very important. Remember in one of the slides, I said that you can't build primary site and secondary site in the same location. It doesn't make any sense. So if that location is affected by the same thing, both sites are gone. So up for consideration and up to think about. Next one quickly, which of the following documents should be contained in a computer incident response team manual? The severity criteria. In your incident response manual, ensure that you have severity criteria because it's in most cases it won't change. Whether that thing here may likely change from time to time. You can have that as appendix, the other things, and then you don't need to be printing those ones out all the time. But your severity criteria, it won't change in a lot of cases, so you can have that in your manual. All right. Which of the following is likely to be the most significant challenge when developing an incident management plan? Lack of management commitment, lack of management support, and organizational consensus. Remember, I said it. I said no management commitment, waste of time and energy and effort. Management must commit. All right. And then this is my second to the last question. Which of the following procedures would provide the best protection if an intruder or malicious program has gained super user access to a system? The answer is rebuild the system using original media. Start again. When they gain the super user access, then you have to rebuild the system again using the original media. Very important. And then takes me to the last question. Which of the following types of insurance coverage would protect an enterprise against dishonest or fraudulent behavior by its own employees? Of course, is called fidelity. Fidelity means insurance coverage against loss from dishonesty or fraud by employees. All right, and that's it. That brings me to the end of the class today. Please don't forget to like. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please subscribe to it. Follow me on my social media pages. My website is there. I'm very active on X, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you again.